Hello, and welcome to my summary of learning post. Today I'll be talking about just the things we learned in EdTech 300. And instead of doing it chronologically, as in starting from the first class, talking what we learned in the first, and going to the second and third, and so on, instead I'm going to break this down by categories. So the first one I will look at is educational blogs. This is one of the first things that we talked about in class. We made our own WordPress blogs, and it was really helpful to learn how to use a lot of those tools, as well as learning that there are secret functions to WordPress, such as like the WP admin editor. So I'll start with that. And through learning about educational blogs, we moved on to Twitter. We talked a lot about the things in Twitter, why it's useful for teachers, and whatnot. And quickly after that, we learned about Twitter Chat, which is a tool that I had actually never heard of before, and I quite liked it, to be honest. It was interesting when I participated in it, because I got to talk to other English teachers and just talking about some of the common problems that English teachers face every day, such as, getting students interested in reading and whatnot. Along with educational blogs, we also looked at Feedly as well, which I found quite interesting because it pointed me in the right direction of other educational blogs that I could look at, and it served as a really nice hub for various educational blogs. And then, of course, there were the classmates' WordPress blogs, which I thought was really interesting, and I'll be eager to keep following those actually if my classmates continue to post on them. So one of the greatest things about this class so far has been the learning about all these different educational blogs and where to find them and whatnot. The next topic I'll talk about is Facebook in the classroom. This is one we didn't focus on a crazy amount, but one of the weekly blogs that we had to post was an interview between two classmates of mine. And we just had a debate going back and forth between whether Facebook is good in the classroom or whether it isn't. So I broke that into two different categories here, either the good points or the bad points. And on the good side, we have creates a classroom community. Everyone already uses it, so there's no teaching to be done. Just if you tell students that we're going to use Facebook, they all understand exactly what we're talking about. And it is a very good method of teaching digital citizenship, which is going to become more and more important as we move towards the future and more people start using social media. All my students that I had an internship already use social media, so it'll be interesting to see if that trend continues into the future. But on the bad points, we had a couple that I brought up in my interview, or the debate, I guess, between us. I talked about privacy issues being one of the big issues, that if we have all our students on Facebook, it becomes a bit of an issue about whether or not we are holding their privacy as sacred, our students' privacy. And there's also, of course, with everything online, cyberbullying potential. When everybody in the class is on Facebook, it can just be a weird space for bullying potential. And in my personal opinion, I think social media is really bad for mental health. So I don't think I'd ever use it, but I can totally understand why some people would. And we also talked a bit about this in one of our classes about an article called "I'm 14 and I quit using social media after discovering what was posted about me." And it was about a girl whose family had been posting about her whole life, and she didn't like the things they were posting about her. So basically, as soon as she realized that this was going on, she quit social media altogether. And I can see that becoming a major issue in the future. Student or children who had no idea that their parents had been posting, baby pictures and pictures of them in the bathtub and really weird things like that, and then being extremely weirded out and totally ditching social media. So I think that's another bad aspect of social media, or of Facebook in particular. And the next one I want to talk about is YouTube. We talked about YouTube just a little bit in class, not not a crazy amount, but there were three different categories that really stuck out to me. So for one of my favorite things we did in the class was when we had to make a educational artifact about our learning project. And so since I'm learning Japanese, I wrote everybody's name in the class in Japanese, and I had a pretty positive reaction to it. Danica even posted her own video, which I was extremely flattered about. She spelled out her name and said it out loud. And thanks again, Danica, if you're watching this. I really appreciate that. I was very, very flattered. Um, we talked about this in class, the problematic children's videos and the Momo challenge and things like that. And I can see that becoming a big issue. I'm actually surprised it already isn't a big issue about the weird children's videos. I remember like a year ago people talking about it a lot, and then it suddenly just kind of phased away. And it's still happening, right? There's still things being posted in children's YouTube channels that probably shouldn't be, like funerals and like weird things like that. So that was a very interesting point of the class that I wanted to bring up. And the third topic was watching videos in the classroom, both in the EdTech class, but also as an actual teacher. Um, we watched a video called Anthropological Introduction to YouTube, which I quite enjoyed, and I highly recommend to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. The next topic I want to talk about is digital identity. I feel like we focused a lot on this in class, which is a very important thing to talk about. There was the 9 Elements by Mike Ribble, which is 9 different, basically guidelines if you want to have like a positive digital identity for being a teacher. And so I highly recommend checking that out if you haven't seen that yet. And there was an article that was posted by Nicole Lee about having multiple identities on the internet and how that's okay. And I definitely subscribe to this idea because yes, I have Facebook, yes, I have Instagram, all that, but I hardly ever use it. I use Reddit the most, and so that's an anonymous website. So I just think that is an important thing to understand for everybody is that, yeah, you can have your personal identity on the internet, like on your WordPress blog or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and all that, but you can also have other identities. Say on Tumblr or something, you have a pen name, or you have another blog that is written under a pen name, or Reddit, which is anonymous. Another topic we talked about a lot in class was fake news. We had the activity in the class, which was actually the New York Times quiz, and I didn't do as good on it as I thought I would, to be honest. So that was a very big eye opener for me. That even if you think you can identify fake news right away, it's still good to take a very close eye to all the things you're reading. You know, checking the sources, checking who posted it. You know, is it CNN or is it Fox? The biases behind the posting of news definitely helps with identifying fake news. I thought that was a really awesome point of discussion that we had in class time and time again because, you know, as teachers going forward, we have to be able to identify fake news if we're ever going to share news with the class. And that's also a good thing that will probably be brought into the class as time moves on. I remember reading a quote one time that the early 90s to the mid 2010s is when we entered the information age. But since the coining of the term fake news, we've entered the misinformation age, where like over half the things you'll see will either be extremely biased or just flat out not real. So that was probably my favorite topic we talked about in class. The next topic I want to talk about are educational media creation tools. One that I used was Powtoon. That was the focus of one of my blog posts. It was just an update on my learning project and whatnot, but I thought Powtoon was really cool. It's just a little janky, a little glitchy, if you know what I mean. So not the first thing I would go to. I would actually probably point to Google Slides first because it's extremely accessible for everyone and it's free and there's no paid for service. It's all free. And that leads me into Lucid Chart, which is actually what this whole thing is made on. This is the website I'm on right now, is Lucid Chart, and I would recommend it. But as I was making this and getting further along, my some of the options were really restricted to me, so I did end up paying $5 to be able to make this video. I probably wouldn't have, but since I had already put in a lot of work into it, I figured it was probably a worthy investment. And after I did invest, this is actually an extremely intuitive tool, and I would recommend it if you have the $5 to spare. We talked about other educational and media creation tools, but these are the two that stuck out to me. And the last topic I want to talk about were just classroom topics and tools, just things we talked about in class and different tools for when you're actually in the classroom. We talked about Flipgrid, which I quite like. The classroom screen, which is another thing that's really cool. I like having all the different options to have up, such as like a timer and whatnot. We talked about Kahoot, but I think everyone knows what Kahoot is. I don't think I'll have to go very far in depth with that. And we talked in one of the last classes about coding and whether coding has a place in the classroom or not. I think it does, but not as a mandatory class. I do think there should be a coding class that students can opt in for, as in it could be an elective, but it shouldn't be for everyone. But I definitely do think it should be a class that's offered. And we talked about the Ontario cell phone ban in one of the classes and whether we think that's a good idea or a bad idea. And I was of the mindset that no, not really. Because when you force teenagers in particular, when you tell them they can't do something, you're forcing them to find more creative ways around the rules. Because they're not going to stop using cell phones. That just won't happen. So why just have a blanket ban when something like a pocket for cell phones in a classroom works just as well? Um, in my internship, I had one in my class, and we call it the Bates Motel. That's my last name, and it's funny because the show. Anyways, I quite like this tool, and I quite like the class too. EdTech 300 wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were just going to be focusing on Kahoot and whatnot, but finding out we had to use a lot of Twitter and Slack and other things like that. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of. It grew on me as time went on, and I especially found in the second half of the class, like from late February onwards, the class really picked up for me, where we started talking about fake news and more digital identity stuff, and things that I thought actually really applied to me as a teacher. So I quite liked the latter half of the course. But as I've stated multiple times at multiple different places, I don't like using social media. So Twitter and all that stuff I didn't really jive with. But the discussions on technology use within the classroom I find very, very interesting. So thank you for watching. I apologize if this is confusing at all, but I had actually quite a bit of fun making this video. So thank you. Until next time, Garrett Bates signing out.